This is Murali Sundaram from Magic Wand Media. I am with Mr. Ajit Kulkarni, Vice President Presales, Asia Pacific. Today being a AVEVA Day, I am here, want to know more about AVEVA by itself in terms of how they are creating a new trend in terms of sustainability and development. The first question, Mr. Kulkarni, how do you perceive the growing role of connected industrial economy, transforming operation management in Indian manufacturing sector?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Sundaram. So what we are seeing is there is and most manufacturing companies go through a typical cycle of source, make, and buy. Now, the ecosystem that these manufacturing companies deal with, it becomes fairly extensive. Okay? To add to that, there are external challenges on these manufacturing companies. Challenges such as changing customer demand, challenges such as inflation, growing cost of raw material, challenges such as maintaining a sustainable operations. Okay? So these are all the challenges that the customers face, and this results in a reflection on the key performance metrics or key performance indicators of these companies. Now, with a proliferation of the supply chain, where we are also seeing a lot of disruptions, it is very important for manufacturers to be in close touch with their vendors, suppliers, and partners. Okay? Now let's take a couple of examples. Let's look at the pharma sector in India. Okay? It's a fairly big sector, currently at around 50 billion US dollars, slated to grow to 65 billion by 2024 and to 130 billion in 2030. India exports pharmaceuticals on a large scale. It exports to around 200 plus countries, right? So and these pharmaceutical companies are subjected to certain regulatory pressures, like good manufacturing practices, like demonstrating compliance to 21 CFR Part 11. So all these pressures drive companies to expand their ecosystem, work with their vendors and partners to ensure they get the right supply of the right specifications of the raw material, which they can use in order to drive up their demand. Okay? So this is the importance that we see in the connected industrial economy.
Can you please share your views on the main advantages of adopting a unified digital platform in the manufacturing industry in terms of stability and safety?
Absolutely. Great question, Mr. Sundaram. So if you look at a typical value chain, even within the organization of a manufacturing company, it typically goes through recipe management. It gets converted to finished products, and then it gets packed, and then it gets shipped, right? Now, I'll give you an example of a biscuit manufacturer. What happened was the packaging line broke down. Okay? Because the packaging line broke down, okay, the back-end processes got blocked. They got there was a interruption in that. So the biscuits go through an oven to get baked and then packed. As a result of which, the oven capacity of the oven was exceeded. So they had to physically get bins and start putting all those biscuits into a container, because the oven it's a continuous manufacturing plant, so it gets flooded, which then resulted in that entire batch being scrapped. Okay, so now if I contrast it to what good might look like, okay, and this is where our MES story comes in. We have a very strong model-driven MES system, a strong process-driven MES system, and as a part of it, what it starts with is a kind of a pre-flight check. A pre-flight check meaning, are all the equipments in working order? Do we have the raw material of the right specifications? Do we have the packaging material? Do we have the right talent on the workflow, on the shop floor? Now this is where it becomes MES plus plus, because we have solutions like mobile operator rounds, which allows workers to go and do inspection periodically. We have a solution which builds up a digital twin of the manufacturing plant, So if something goes wrong, they know exactly where it has gone wrong and how to fix it. So this extensive integration across the AVEVA portfolio is what results in more predictable operations. It results in lower total cost of ownership. And when the companies make their annual business plans, that is something they can stick to with confidence.
Okay. Talking of digital transformation, how do you see the impact of deploying digital tools and platforms in optimizing manufacturing value chain in terms of streamlining processes and improving overall efficiency in manufacturing operations? Very specific to sustainability.
Correct, correct. So, well, the great question, because sustainability is a topic of high interest, not only for us, but for our customers as well. AVEVA is a part of the Paris Accord, is a member of COP28. So, we take the sustainability commitment very seriously. We have tools and technologies, not only MES, but other things like real-time optimization, etc., by which we have the ability to not only track the emissions, the wastage, effluents, and other factors that contribute to an increase in the or increase in greenhouse gases or in or wastage. Okay, in a manufacturing organization, typically we have wastage coming from wrong packaging material. It comes from using the wrong or rather less efficient raw material in wastage and effluent discharge treatment. Okay. So where it comes back to is we have many customers that have multi-plant operations. Okay. So we typically start with one plant, identify the root cause of the variance of where we should be, but we are not. We have tools to identify and track. We also track scope 1, scope 2, scope 3 emissions, which are so important for a manufacturing company because they buy electricity, so that constitutes scope 1. They use electricity, which constitutes scope 2, and it's a logistics intensive industry.
Okay.
So that's where the scope 3 comes in. So we have all the processes, tools, and technologies in order to help companies assess. This is the starting point of the digital transformation journey, because the change starts from the top, and the management of the company has to be committed to achieving certain sustainability goals. Now, on a broader level, when we look at sustainability as a topic itself, there are 3 levers we have in order to drive change within our organization. And the number one is, when we have brownfield operations. And that is what I mentioned about, having the tools and technologies to track emissions, to track wastage, effluent discharge, etc. And we can work with the company as a part of their digital transformation strategy to set realistic goals and help them measure and track until they achieve it. That's the first thing. Second thing is, if you have a fuel intensive or energy intensive operations, we have partners in the ecosystem, like for example, Aker carbon capture. So what they have technology which absorbs carbon dioxide from thin air, and they have the technology to inject it into the ground, store it for future use. And I'll give you a proof point here. Henkel in Germany, for example, they have reduced their greenhouse gas footprint by 37%.
Oh, okay.
So we are actively working with companies on doing this. The third, of course, is to explore renewable and alternative sources of energy. And it was very good of you to mention the green hydrogen economy. And typically what we have seen is manufacturing companies typically are not as energy consumption heavy as some of the other heavy industries. So this gives us a golden opportunity to try to bring into play a variety of renewable energy sources like wind, solar, and green hydrogen. The challenge with wind and solar is it is not necessarily predictable output.
Okay.
So we have another part of our portfolio called AVEVA process simulation, through which we can simulate the based on historical observations, we can simulate what is the proportion of wind and solar, and how we use green hydrogen in order to ensure steady state supply to run the plant.
Okay.
Okay. So these are the various ways and means in which we address the sustainability dilemma
Okay.
for our customers.
Okay. This shows definitely AVEVA is going to be contributing towards net zero in India. Probably, I hope in the next 50 years, India would be net zero. And one of the biggest contributors would be AVEVA through their system software and processing.